this is the second part of the video about Stan Utley's chipping method. So what I want to do now is kind of show you and explain to you what clubs to use and how we can start to get the golf ball close to the hole. So for this particular shot, I'm only a few strides away from the hole, but we've got a little bit of fringe here landing onto the front of the apron of the green and rolling onto the green. Now what I want to do for this particular shot is take this area out of play, land it on a predictable surface and allow it to run to the hole. Now I've got two clubs here. I've got a lob wedge and I've got my sand wedge, which has got 54 degrees of loft on it. So what you'll notice here is I've got an outside line pointed towards the target and this one is parallel to it. So remember what Stan was really liking was parallel feet rather than an open stance and leaning the shaft forward. So not an open stance and hands forward, keeping everything much more level to control the club face and to control the spin on the golf ball. So I'm setting up with the golf ball fractionally forward of centre, and I'm going to start off with my hands nice and level. I'm not pushing my hands forward so that we can use the bottom of the golf club, use the bottom leading back edge rather than the leading edge. That's the bit, the bounce that we want to use to produce the control. So what I'm looking to do now is just land this on the fringe of on the actual green itself and let this roll towards target. So everything's set up correctly, so there's a little wrist set. If I just do this from face on, so there's a little wrist set here, release, so we're releasing the loft of the club back to the ball, and then a gentle follow through. Now as we connect with the golf ball, there'll be a natural slowing down of the golf club. So what I wouldn't want to do is have like slow here and try and accelerate it too fast. So there's enough of a backswing to land it just a short distance and then let the ball roll to target. So everything's set up much squarer now than it would be conventionally for people who normally chip. So I'm just trying to land this, and that's my landing area just on the fringe of the green. So that one landed perfect and obviously rolled into the hole, which was quite nice. But because we're setting up square to the golf ball and we're moving the club this way and not across the ball, all that's happening is the ball is running slightly up the club face, just catching a few grooves, but when it lands, the ball is rolling true. When I hit across it, we're putting side spin on, and that's when we can start missing these short chip shots. Now, the reason I chose my sand wedge instead of my lob wedge, I'll show you now, I'll demonstrate to you why I don't want to use the lob wedge for this particular shot. So because it's got, in my case, it's got at least, no, it has got 4 degrees more loft on than my sand wedge. But because it's got that extra bit of loft, if I play the same technique, it can just come out that little bit short. So it's got a bit more spin on the golf ball and the ball's come out short of the hole. So what I want to do now, what I'd like to do now is show you a longer shot now. So we're still doing the chipping action, we're still setting up square, we're having a little wrist set with a release, but I'm going to just do a comparison between my sand wedge and my lob wedge, and I'm going for the far flag. Hopefully you can see that from here. Now there is quite a bit of left to right slope on this green, so I'm actually aiming left of it, allowing for the slope to bring it back to target. But again, just showing you how the trajectory will change even though the technique doesn't change. So my ball is still positioned forward, I'm setting up with my feet nice and parallel, the shaft of the golf club is level, so I'm not trying to angle that forward, I'm not changing the loft. So I'm just doing exactly the same technique, perhaps a little bit further back just to get the distance, but what you'll find from here, I'm not taking the club to the inside too much, I'm just letting it come back and release. So if I just do this from face on, so there's a wrist set and release the back edge of the club under the ball, not the front edge as so many people do with chipping. Let's watch the trajectory and the rollout on this one, and then we'll compare that then to the 58 degree. So it's come out quite low, and now it's just rolling towards our target. So if I want the golf ball to kind of come out a bit low and release, I'm finding my sand wedge is okay for this. We can definitely use other wedges. We know that. We can use other golf clubs. We could use gap wedges, pitching wedges, 9 irons, 8 irons. But for this technique, what I find would happen, because there's a little wrist set and a release, if you use like an 8 iron, that ball can release and go too far. So I quite like using it with quiet wrists if I'm using a lot less loft. But for this particular technique, this requires a little bit of wrist set, so more loft is generally a little bit better than too little loft, unless we have too much of a good thing. So now I've got my 58-degree wedge, and hopefully what you can see from here is the trajectory will change, but also the landing will change. So I'm still setting up exactly as I just did with my, my sand wedge, but now I've got the 58-degree. So it's gone up a lot higher, and what we can see there, it stops so much quicker. So for a pin that's a little bit further away from us, we're going to have a longer swing. The longer the swing, there's more variables. My slight issue as well is just judging distance with that long swing, but let's just have another go. So everything is nice and level, wrist cock, release. So it's gone a lot higher, and we can see how now that ball is landing softer and just trickling towards our target. So what you should do with these shots is practice them, find out which one's the best results for you, and then stick with that method. But unless you try different golf clubs, you'll never know what you're capable of doing. What I've done now is put myself in a different position. I still want to use the same technique, but I'm faced with a totally different golf shot. I'm on a slight upslope. I have to carry the ball at least 7 strides to land it on the front of the green, and I'm going for the first flag that we can see. Now, what I've done now is I've still got the same wedges, my sand wedge and my lob wedge. So I'm setting up identical. So what's happened on there, the technique felt fine, but as the ball's come out a bit lower, it's now released and gone to the second flag, which is not the one I want to go to. So what I want to demonstrate now is what happens when I use my lob wedge, my 58-degree. So I'm setting up exactly the same way as I just did with my sand wedge. Everything's nice and level. But that one came out quite a bit higher, and that came out a lot softer and has actually landed just short of the hole. So I didn't really feel I was trying to spin the ball, so I wasn't opening my stance and hitting across it. All I've done is released it, but because I've got the 58-degree, it's just come out higher, softer, and landed with much more control. I've just placed this ball on a bear lie, so I don't know if you can see it very clear on the camera, but it's actually quite hard. There's not much give in this one. And what I want to do is show you the same technique, but a little cheat, if you want to call it that, just something that we can do to the golf club that makes it much easier to play off these tight bare lies. And all we're going to do is slightly alter the club, and we're going to fractionally close the club face, much more so than opening it. And the reason for that is we want to change the bounce on the golf club. So when I close the club face, when I fractionally close it to the left, and it's only a fraction, I'm now taking the bounce off the golf club, and I'm going to have a much better sharp edge. So in these tight lies, these bare lies, you need a sharp leading edge. If you've got too much bounce on the club, it hits the ground and just hits the middle of the ball, and then the ball shoots off out of control. So the way to do it is just fractionally close it at setup first, then take your natural grip. So what we wouldn't do is twist the whole body, and it's subtle. We're just turning it maybe 1 second, something like that on a clock face. So it's very subtle, but what that's doing now is taking bounce off the golf club, because that would be our enemy on this kind of shot, because we still want the ball to go up and we want it to stop, but if we've got too much bounce, that would nigh on be impossible. So I'm still setting up exactly the same. I'm fractionally closing my club face. The shaft is still level. Everything's the same as it was previously. I'm just taking the bounce off the golf club, and because we're having a little wrist set here, the club is naturally going up a little bit steeper, and from there it's easy to hit the ground. What we wouldn't want to do from here is go too flat, because you'll thin it all day long and it'll shoot off the other side of the green. So I'm just slightly closing it, then taking my natural grip, a little wrist set up in the air, release. So the ball has still come out with some elevation, but it's also stopped on landing. And because I've got a sharp edge, I can just get into that ground a little bit. So let's just show you that again. So just showing you this from face on, everything's the same, just fractionally closing the club face. I'm cocking the wrists in the backswing, I'm releasing the club head back to the golf ball. And that's just popping the ball nicely up in the air, but I'm able to get into the ground. Now if I open the club face from here, let's get it in a tight lie. I'll just put it back where it was. Horrible tight lie. If I open the face, now I've increased the bounce. Now the bounce is too good at its job, and that's just thinned and shot over the other side of the green. So up, release it with a fractionally closed club face, makes a nice sharp edge and enables you to hit off bare lies. So it's a shot that a lot of people are very fearful of, yet with the right technique, the right setup, this is still possible. So this is just an extra bit of content to match series 1 of the Stan Utley method, but everything's so simple. With practice you become very, very efficient at this. So just as a reminder, there's hundreds of videos here on YouTube, so if you just type in Julian Mellor, you'll find all the videos that I've got in there, well over 300, so there's plenty of content to keep you occupied. And again, if you're serious about your golf game, you really do want to improve it in a structured way, not a random way, then get signed up to propergolfing.com. You get instant access to loads of more content on there. You'll also get coaching sessions with myself, as well as an invite to a private members meeting that we host every week, which are proving to be fantastic. So if you are serious, get signed up to propergolfing.com. And if you found this video helpful, please leave a comment in the box below. Please like and share it with your friends. And if you do need to email me or you want to come for some coaching, just message me, Julian@propergolfing.com. I'm always happy to help you with your golf game. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.